If you ever wondered what would happen if you pushed a Honda lawnmower into a steel I-beam, well, you're in luck. The owner of this mower had a steel I-beam in their backyard for decades and for some reason never had a reason to move it, at least that was until last week. Let's just say they now have a fantastic reason to move it, and they also learned what was stronger in a battle between them, and this time it wasn't the Honda. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Honda lawnmower, and the problem is that while my coworker was using it, they had an unfortunate accident. Now, I understand that accidents can happen, and I know they're really kicking themselves for this one, but when I tell you more about this situation, I think they secretly had ulterior motives. Now, I'm going to try and repair this lawnmower, but yours might be different, so this might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. Now, most times when I've heard that a lawnmower has been pushed into something hard, I see it as something accidental. But my coworker had been moaning and really groaning for years that they did not like this Honda mower. Now, I don't recall the reason for it, but the last mower they had also had a Honda engine on it, but it was on a different mowing deck. So I can only guess that it's the Honda mowing deck that they didn't care for, which I can understand. So here's where things get a little strange. As I'm assessing the damage to this mower, it turns out that the brake cable is also broken and the pull rope is not retracting either. So I had to ask them about it, and they said that when the mower struck the iceberg, everything broke, which I kind of find tough to visualize. What's also tough is trying to pull on the rope now that I've been able to get the rope to retract, but that's because of the broken brake cable. So after getting the mower on its right side, we can get a better look at the damage. Now, I was thinking that the blade was going to be in terrible shape after hitting the I-beam, but to be honest, it's not that bad and I wouldn't mind using it again. So I plan on trying to start this engine and seeing if it's even possible considering what happened to it. But that means we'll have to do something with the broken cable, but there is a problem. I do not want to invest in an expensive brake cable for a machine that might not be worth fixing. Now, of course, I could always use my go-to, which is a zip tie, to bypass the brake and the on-off switch, but this time I think I'm going to try something else. This time, I'm going to fish this tiny wire into the outer cable and have it stand in for the one that's broken. I've had this wire for a really long time, and from time to time I've used it sparingly, but this time I'm going to use it for a good cause. Now don't worry, I'm not going to cut the wire to length, that way I'll be able to use it again for other projects. I'll just tie off this end where the Z-bend in the cable would go, and then on the other end, just sort of wind it around the brake handle. I do have to let you know that this is a fantastic method to fix a broken cable with an intact or undamaged outer cable. However, I would not recommend that you use this method on a machine that you plan on selling. The reason why is pretty clear, but if you need to hear it out loud, it's for liability issues. Now that we've got the brake cable squared away, I'll just turn on the fuel and then check on the fuel level, which should be good, and then we'll try starting it. And as you can tell, there's plenty of fuel in the tank, so at least that's a plus. But unfortunately, that's when I noticed something was kind of off with the recoil. It wasn't acting like it should, and I couldn't put my finger on it, so it looks like we'll need to take it off and inspect it. So I was told that this recoil was either replaced or somehow serviced very recently, which means there's a good chance that these nuts might get stuck to the studs. That means I'll be using some kind of spray on them and then using my impact to take them off. Now luckily these didn't get stuck, but if they do, well, you're in for a real treat trying to get them loose again. So first off, this is not a new recoil, so it was not replaced, at least with a new one. Secondly, there's only one starter pole instead of two, so the other one is either missing or someone installed one that was already missing it. I'm not really sure how hitting something hard with the blade would affect the starter because it's not in play while the engine is running. So instead, I think they tried using the pull rope to start the engine again, but with the brake engaged, that's when they damaged it. So luckily, this engine is not stuck, which is great news. However, something is not right with it. I can feel that there's some extra resistance from the engine at some point that's much stronger than just the compression stroke. So either way, I don't want to use a good recoil on a bad engine because it might damage that one as well. That means we'll be putting the old one back on and then trying to start it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? Well, it turns out that was very bad, almost unusable as a matter of fact. I guess we should be happy that at least it starts and runs, but if you kept using it like this, the engine wouldn't last long before something else broke on it. So something strange just happened. I had to use a different socket for the spark plug, meaning it's not the same spark plug that was in there from 2 years ago. Now the last time I took the spark plug out, it was the correct NGK spark plug, but it looks like it was very recently replaced with a different one. Now as you can tell, someone replaced it with a Champion spark plug, and even though I've never tried it, according to the charts, this is not the correct equivalent plug, but I guess it's good enough. Since I'm very certain that the crankshaft is bent, I want to take a closer look at it. So with the blade out of the way and the bolt in the middle of the screen, I'll rotate the engine and you can see just how far off center it is. Now if you need a better visual, I'll put a line across the screen and it should make it a little bit easier to tell just how bad it really is. This has to be one of the worst ones I've ever seen, at least for a mower that I've worked on before. Now the worst part is that the spark plug is out of the engine, so it shouldn't be this difficult to rotate the engine, but it still feels like it's in there, which is not a good sign. That means there's a really good chance that the crankshaft might be bent all the way back inside the engine, but we won't know until we dig a little bit deeper. Now while we have the blades off the engine, we might as well check and see if they're out of balance as well. And to be honest, I would have thought that the larger blade would have been out of balance, but it turns out it's still balanced, which is pretty good news. I guess cutting partway through a metal I-beam didn't affect its balance. We'll then follow that up with the smaller mulching blade and come to find out that one too is also still balanced. So here's where things get a bit off, and it is my fault, but you'll see what I mean. Now at this point, I really wanted to try and inspect the crankshaft and see if I can spot the area that's making contact with the engine. And to do that, we'll need to take off the blade adapter and the pulley. So I started off by removing the belt and its guard and then partially installing the bolt for the blade. Now the reason you need to put the bolt back in part way is because you need something to brace against while using the puller. So here's where I made my mistake. I decided to try and pull both the pulley and the adapter off the crankshaft at the same time. So unfortunately that didn't work. So next I tried to shock the assembly while there was still tension on them, but that didn't work either. So after that I decided to do what some of the viewers have recommended, which is to just give it a smack with a hammer and try to bend it back. So first off, I know I'm not swinging it as hard as I can, and I'm pretty sure you know why I'm not. Now, at this point, I'm pretty fed up with it. I'm almost certain that the 1/4 inch key for the shaft has sheared, and that's caused the adapter to get stuck to the shaft. That means if I want to take the adapter off, I'll have to use a hydraulic puller capable of pulling with a lot more power, which is not going to be cheap. I hate to admit this, but I don't think I'll be able to take off the adapter or the pulley, at least with the tools that I have right now. And unless I decide to take a real swing at the crankshaft, I'm pretty sure it'll either break the crankshaft or the oil sump on the engine, neither which I want. So for the time being, I'm just going to put everything back on the mower so I don't lose anything and just sit on it until I decide on what to do. Now I will say, I'm going to have to do a lot of thinking about this one because it may not be worth fixing, and here's why. So first off, fixing the engine the right way will cost me either a new or used crankshaft. And with the price of a new one, the used one will have to do. And taking off a stuck adapter might require a tool that's not going to be cheap, making it less profitable to do. And the last reason is time. The time to disassemble the engine, replace the crankshaft, and then reseal it again is going to be a lot. That means if I decide to do this, I can't sell the mower, and the reason is the price I'd have to ask for it would be more than a new mower. Otherwise, I'll be doing this project as a personal investment, and if you know anything about that, you hardly ever make money on those. So my question is, what would you do? Go up to bat again and keep swinging at it until it breaks? Keep trying to remove the adapter so you can replace the crankshaft? Or just keep it for parts instead? And as usual, there are no wrong answers to this one. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.